Okay, I am back with part 2 of my summer stir fry. I'm gonna make a sauce and then I'm gonna cook it up, and it's gonna be really quick and really delicious. So this is a sauce that can be adapted. It's kind of a template, a variation on a theme. If you know me, you know I use these ingredients all the time. I love this combination, but you can substitute different things that have similar qualities or characteristics. So, for example, I'm using tahini, which is a sesame seed butter. It's kind of like peanut butter or cashew butter or almond butter, any of which would work wonderfully in here. I'm using miso, which is a fermented soybean paste, so also has kind of a thick, nut buttery-like texture. If you didn't want to use that, you could just use nut butter instead or just omit it. It has kind of a salty fermented flavor, which is delicious. It's soy, so some people don't want to do soy, but it's a really high quality whole soy that has really good gut bacteria, so it's really, really good probiotic in your stomach. I'm using mustard, so that kind of sour, bitter component, also a little bit of emulsifier, and I'm using maple syrup for the sweet. So again, you could use honey, you could use orange juice or apple juice, you could use other sweet things, or you could omit it. It's totally about what tastes good to you and what combination works for you. So I'm gonna start with my miso. I'm gonna start with the thickest things because then I need to kind of get everything mixed together, and it doesn't work to start with liquid and then add something thicker to it. So I'm gonna start with my miso and my mustard, and a whisk is a really great tool for this because it will help blend things. I'm going to add my tahini, and we will post a recipe on the website, so no worries, but it's basically about equal proportions of tahini and miso, and then equal proportions of mustard and maple syrup. This is going to end up being a fairly thick mixture. You could add soy sauce for a little bit of salty, but there is miso, which has a lot of saltiness, so I usually like to wait. And this is a pretty thick mixture, so I'm actually going to add a little bit of water. Here you could add juice of some kind. You could add vinegar for a little bit more sour. It will take a lot of liquid because that tahini and that miso are both pretty dry, and they'll absorb a lot before they really thin down. And I want this to be pourable because I'm going to pour it over my stir-fried vegetables. So that's about right. I can always add more liquid. I can add more of any of these ingredients. So I'll just hang on to that. I also have some garlic and ginger, and I want to make sure and include that because that's a really, really important flavor component. The garlic is actually local, so it is that time of year. It's young garlic, so it's a little chewier or tougher. It's not quite as cured, and so I'm gonna just cut it up nice and small. Again, same technique. I've got the tip of my knife there. Once I get it kind of down to a smaller size, I'm just going to use my hand like this on top of the knife to mince it. My cutting board jiggles a little bit, so it sounds wobbly, but it's fine. This can go into the sauce or it can go into the pan. If I put it in the sauce, it will stay relatively raw because I add the sauce at the end. So it depends how much garlic bite I want. And then with my ginger, a really cool trick is just to take your spoon and use your spoon to peel your ginger. And I don't worry about getting every single bit of skin off, but it's really a nice way to get it off without taking anything else off. And then I'm going to cut my ginger, keeping in mind that it's very fibrous. So I want to cut in the direction of the fibers first. So I'm cutting basically like lengthwise first, and then I will cut across to get it minced. And this is where good knife technique and a good sharp knife are really important. So I'm going to turn my pan on. I'm using a nice heavy cast iron skillet, and again, if you know me, you know that's my favorite thing to cook with. But any good heavy pan will work. You want to get your pan nice and hot, and then you want to get your oil hot before you start throwing things in. As I've said, the stir fry is cooking fast at a little higher heat with hot oil. So I want to make sure it's nice and hot before I get things in, but I don't want it so hot that it's just going to start smoking. And I use olive oil and toasted sesame oil, so another flavor element that complements that sauce really well. But neither one of those is a really high heat oil, so I want to be cooking at a reasonable heat, but one that's going to cook things quickly enough. So there's a little bit of sort of strategy to the oil, and I am very generous with my oil. High quality naturally occurring oil is really, really good for us, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to stress about it being a little oily, and I like the flavor of it anyway. So I'm going to start with my onions, get those aromatics going, get that smell going. And I want those onions to cook a little bit before I add the rest of my items. But again, this is going to be a fast cooking process, and so I don't need to wait 5 minutes each time. It's more like 30 seconds to a minute each time. So as soon as I see these sizzling like this, I know that that oil is hot. I'm going to throw my carrots in, and I'm going to throw my ginger and garlic in. And I don't need to move it around a lot. Even though a stir fry implies you're stirring and frying, I do want to let it just sit because that helps with the caramelization. I'll actually add a little bit of salt right to this. Not a lot, because as we know, the sauce is kind of salty, but that helps draw the moisture out, which means the oil caramelizes more quickly. So I do want a little bit in there. I'll stir that around a little bit. Next is my eggplant and my broccoli. And again, I'm keeping in mind I have a lot of vegetables prepped, but I don't have a huge pan, and I don't want to overwhelm the pan because then everything won't cook evenly or thoroughly. So I'm not going to necessarily throw every single vegetable in that I cut, and that just means I'll have more for later. And I do actually want to cut my greens down. These are going to obviously cook way down, but I don't want them to be really big when I throw them in. So those are that. Now this corn is so fresh and so delicious that I could eat it raw, but I don't really want to do that. I want to cook it a little bit and get those sugars to really come to the surface. So I'm going to wait until that eggplant and that broccoli is almost done. Throw that corn in, and of course, not only does it add wonderful texture and sweetness, but that beautiful bright yellow color is also really important, right? It indicates not only nutrients and this great variety of nutrients, but also it's just flavor and a variety of flavor. It's just so seasonal looking when we have all these colors together. I'm going to get that going another 10-15 seconds. I'll throw my greens in. Now, yes, I love greens and I have a lot of greens in this. You do not have to use the same proportions as me. The beauty of a stir fry is you can put whatever vegetables in whatever combination and whatever quantity you want. But I do, now that my pan's getting pretty full, I want to make sure and kind of get everything mixed in so that it all cooks down and is really coated and caramelized. So I'm going to give that another 30 seconds or so. Hopefully you can see this, but I'll hold it closer at the end. It's beautiful. Got the purple onion, the purple of the eggplant, the orange carrot, the yellow corn, and obviously that green. And now I'm turning the heat off. Turning the heat off does not stop this from cooking. It's very hot. This is a heavy pan. It's holding a lot of heat, so it's going to keep cooking. Once I can kind of hear it slowing down, the sizzle is slowing down, then I will throw in my tomatoes and move those around a little bit. So beautiful, so gorgeous. And then, last but not least, I will pour my sauce. So the sauce doesn't need to cook, and I want it to stay nice and creamy and not break down too much. So I really wait until the heat has slowed down before I add that sauce. And there is my beautiful, beautiful stir fry. I can serve it with cooked grain like millet or quinoa or brown rice, or cooked rice noodles, or just have it like this. Enjoy.